Professor Ron, if you were to advise an actor who is slated to play a police officer that will be entering a fresh crime scene, what are some essentials that actor should know? Some details that really people only in law enforcement or forensics would know about?
Well, the first rule of a first responder, which is what we call the first officer on duty, is preservation of life. They have to go in and make sure if there's any bodies, are they alive? And if they are, the crime scene be damned, you have to do what you can to preserve their life. Get the EMTs in, get the paramedics, stuff like that. Unfortunately, it sometimes comes at the detriment of the crime scene, of the preservation of the crime scene. That said, once you've taken care of that, then you can preserve the crime scene. And by that I mean put up a perimeter, set up the yellow tape, make sure nobody comes in and out, make sure the press stays way, way far away. You don't want to allow people in that don't belong there. And one of the rules that we have is kind of like Boy Scouts, pack it in, pack it out. You walk in and try as the best you can to walk backwards the same way you came in. People don't understand that and don't get that because walking backwards in front of a camera is not a good thing. But that's what we actually do with a first responder. The second thing I have to say is study your role intently. Ian McKellen, who I met when I was just a kid, had told me that read your material in depth before you start anything. Because I had asked him about a Shakespearean play, and he says, I never read the play, I just do the scene. But you need to read everything, you're young. So to the neophyte, or the young officer in training, I would say read books, read websites. You don't have time to read books. Read journal articles, read websites, look things up. Expose yourself, if there's going to be dead bodies, expose yourself to pictures of dead bodies. There's plenty of websites out there that have things like that. That's basically what I would say.
In terms of an emotional response, would most officers just keep their composure in terms of, like, what if they see something involving children or just something that's very disturbing? Would most officers probably they'd still have to remain non-emotional?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You have to keep your emotions in check, would be a good way to say it. You have to maintain integrity of the scene and yourself at all times. Media has ways of finding out what's going on at a crime scene. They have microphones that can pick things up at 3 miles, whatever. They have their ways of finding out. I know of an incident that happened years ago where people were eating donuts and laughing, the command post, and they were setting things up and trying to get it going, and the media picked up on it, and that department got lambasted. That's not something that's appropriate. You have to stay with dignity and respect. One thing I always teach my students is when referring to a person that has passed away, they are decedents. They are not corpses. They are not dead guys. They are not bodies. They are decedents. That is the best way to pay respect. Yeah.
And is there a gender-specific terminology, or no? It's always decedent, and if we don't know who the person is it a Jane Doe, or that's...
Jane Doe, John Doe is very, very prevalent.
Right.
So Jane Doe 1, Jane Doe 2, Jane Doe 3. Sometimes coroner's offices will label them Jane Doe and the date, things like that. So yes, we would still call gender non-specific and call them decedents. But yes, we would call them officially in a report until they've been identified, of course.
Sure.
Then you would label them by their name, and generally you would say, Mr. Roberts or whatever. You don't leak names out into the press usually until something's been really adjudicated, which means it's gone through all the way through court and through trial. Sometimes you don't release information like that. You preserve the integrity of the decedent.
In terms of approaching the decedent, let's suppose the officer realizes, okay, we have someone that has passed away. How are they approaching the body? They have gloves on? Of course.
Yes, hazmat would be involved. You have to be very, very careful when approaching a decedent, because you don't know if they have AIDS or if they have other communicable diseases, STDs, things like that. So wearing gloves, wearing proper hazmat materials. They have disposable materials from footies to the head. Everything in between, and they're like $5. It's no big deal. They're disposable. It is better to be protected, because you never, in this day and age, you never know with hepatitis C and other communicable diseases like that are highly contagious or are highly easily spread. You have to protect yourself.
So then, let's suppose they were protected, they had gloves, maybe some footies or whatever. How would they touch the decedent? Let's suppose they wanted to move him, or maybe they wouldn't move him. What would happen? Would that only be the EMTs or the coroner's office that would move the decedent?
Very good question. The coroner's office. Actually, there's a coroner/ME's office, which is medical examiner. The coroner is many times the sheriff coroner. The Orange County coroner is the Orange County sheriff in south of Los Angeles. But the medical examiner is the squad that takes care of examining the body. And they will be the ones that come in and move it, and I don't want to say it, move them, and take care of the examination. And you are allowed to protect and preserve, but you are not allowed to remove or move. You can pat them down and look for a wallet for identification, stuff like that. Be very, very careful. They may have a needle in their pocket. And even if you're wearing gloves, doesn't matter. Needles are sharper than any glove you're wearing, unless you're wearing, industrial strength. But the ME is the one that they will yell at you if you've touched the body and moved it, because, and as I teach in my courses, you can see if a body has been moved or hasn't been moved, and it's very important. I mean, a 5-minute of rolling it over could change could be the difference between knowing that it was laying down or not knowing if it was laying down or on its side or whatnot, and that can completely change the outcome of the investigation.
So when this officer is going to this crime scene, where are they checking for the pulse to see if they have a decedent, to see if it is a crime scene?
Yeah, well, that's two things. The best thing is the wrist, of course, or the carotid artery, which I forget which side that's on. I don't do that part. And then as to if it's a crime scene or not, always just, I don't want to say pretend, always assume that it's a crime scene until proven otherwise. That is the best formula for an investigation. You can always, also another thing with the perimeter that I talked about with the yellow tape and all that, you can always push it out further, because you can always pull back when you need to. So you may start off with having a perimeter that's 5 blocks wide, because you don't know where the killer may still be in the neighborhood, assuming there's a killer, of course. But as you find out, no, it's just located at the house, then you can pull things in. Or a lot of times, we're under a time constraint. If you're on a freeway, say a freeway shooting happened, you close down the freeway, people are going to get ticked off. You don't want it closed any longer than you have to. You have to get in, get it done right, and get out. You have one chance. That's one of the most important rules of any scientific investigation, is you have one chance to preserve it, to document it, to collect it. And particularly when it comes to like a freeway, you cannot go back the next day. Your crime scene has been compromised at that point. Same thing with a house, not too bad, you can lock down. You can say nobody can get in here, it's preserved. In lighting terms, it's a hot set. Things like that. You can leave it as it is.